We are in the 11th lesson in our Leviticus study, and we're in the 15th chapter. And I must admit, I have read chapter 15 of Leviticus more times than I can remember. But I have never taught a single lesson on the contents found in this chapter. I have read every commentary available to me of the famous commentators as well as the lesser known scholars. Not one of them has discussed the content in this chapter satisfactory to my understanding. And therefore I have foregone any attempt to explain the context in the chapter altogether in the past. Yet here I am. And it would be a disgrace just to skim over the intended message, to disregard its sensitive and personal topic. Now, I have thought long and hard about this text, considering what the scholars have said before me, and determined in my heart and my mind that the others have restricted their attention too quickly to the private parts of a man and a woman, and missed the real intent of this passage. And so I contend that this law concerning a man and woman with a discharge, and that is the topic of this. It's the law of discharge from a man or a woman, and I'll go ahead and say either in illness or intentional. I contend that this law concerning a man or a woman with a discharge deals with general and specific places where these discharges can occur on the body. Well, with that, let us delve into this rather sensitive yet significant instruction that can be applied to the lives of those people in 1464 BC and might well be truthful today. So we come to the law concerning a man or woman with a discharge. And we start with the man in general. And we start with the person of the man with a discharge. So as we open our Bibles to Leviticus chapter 15, we find ourselves facing the Lord's law concerning a man or a woman with a discharge from the body. First, the Lord will address His instruction for the man in general, verse 1. The Lord also spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when any man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean. This, moreover, shall be his uncleanness in his discharge. It is his uncleanness whether his body allows its discharge to flow or whether his body obstructs its discharge. Every bed on which the person with the discharge lies becomes unclean, and everything on which he sits becomes unclean." Now, while most commentators have immediately directed their attention to the most private parts of a man's body, I contend that this is not the specific intended meaning in this passage. So before I delve into that, let us deal with the subject of this instruction. The text says, when any man. Now, the word man, we know, if it's the word Adam in Hebrew language, it means men and women as a whole. But if it's the word is, it means a male. And that word man here in this passage is is, and it means a male. Factually, the Hebrew text uses the word twice in this phrase. He says, when any is, when any male. So it really reads, when any male. So there must not be any confusion about this opening passage here in chapter 15, dealing with males or with all humanity, because it means men, or women because it doesn't. It means men. It means males. Now I want to ask the question. Think about this. How many natural places on a man's body can a discharge come from in times of sickness? Now while you're thinking about that, I want you to go to your head first. Count the places that discharges can come from on your head first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did you count 7? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth. Are there not 7 natural, normal, God-designed places on the head where in times of sickness, nasty discharges can ooze from? Now when you evaluate the rest of man, down below his neck, you will find 2 more natural, normal, God-designed places where nasty discharges can ooze in time of sickness. Okay, that's over. For now in this passage, let us leave it at that. A male has 9 bodily places where diseases can ooze on his body. Now in that case, you might think that I'm wrong in expanding the intent of this passage to the head instead of focusing solely down on what's below. But I ask this question. Where else in the Bible does the Lord discuss the discharges of diseases of the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the mouth? If not here, then where? It is my contention that the Lord begins this passage with the available openings wherewith diseases can naturally ooze as signs of illness, as signs of sickness, be it at the head or be it below. And one reason for this opinion is found in the words, whether his body allows its discharge to flow or whether his body obstructs its discharge. As soon as our nose begins to flow or our nose is stopped up, it is an immediate sign that we are sick. The Bible in the context of Leviticus would call that unclean. We are unclean with an illness of the nose. The same occurs with the eyes, the ears, the mouth, and from the openings down below. Now the Lord has already dealt with the diseases of the flesh that break out in the unnatural places. He calls that leprosy, which means disease, by the way, if you remember the definition of the word leprosy. In this text, the Lord moves to discuss the disorders of the natural places that are already open. So the passage we read ends with, every bed on which the person with the discharge lies becomes unclean, and everything on which he sits becomes unclean. Now, is it not true that the flu's signs begin with a runny nose, itchy eyes, draining eyes, and phlegm coughed up from the mouth? We must go ahead and add that which often accompanies the cold with, down below, diarrhea, or maybe that thick, that dark water that comes from us. It is God's natural design of the body's function to tell us when we are sick. But in our sickness, is it not true that everything we touch while we are in our disease of this kind contaminates everything we touch, everything we lie on, sit on, eat on, lean on, sneeze on, and cough on. We contaminate everything. Unclean, as the Bible would say. And everything that we make sick can make others sick. Well, who would be another? Who's another? So in verse 5 we come here to maybe the nurse of the man with a discharge. Because you see, the Lord addresses anyone who comes near such a sick man. And in our minds we can imagine this as the nurse of the man with a discharge. Verse 5. Anyone, moreover, who touches his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever sits on the thing on which the man with the discharge has been sitting shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And also whoever touches the person with the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Now in general, sick people with issues that come from the orifices of the body need the assistance of some kind of nurse to attend to their needs for food, for water, for medicines, and for clean linens. Whomever that person is, with a sickness, whoever puts themselves in the dead center of the bullseye of this sickness, where this disease may be contracting the disease too. Simply by being around the sick, one makes themselves unclean also. Thus everything they touch that has been touched by the sick may transfer the sickness to the nurse. So what's the answer? Well, I can tell you what the answer is. It's the universal cleaning agent given by the Lord. Water. Wash, 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 wash. We see over and over in this passage. Wash everything touched by the sick man. What is the prescription to keep yourself from catching the illness? You are to bathe. You are to wash your clothing if you have touched anything touched by the sick man. Now we come to the spit of the sick. Colds and diseases often come with a cough and with a sneeze. And with a cough or a sneeze comes spit. When spit comes, so does the contagious disease. Verse 8b. Or if the man with the disease spits on one who is clean, he too shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Now in 2020 AD, the world we live in was shut down by necessity because of the disease called COVID-19. And as we know it, the infection spreads by airborne contagious particles coming from the infected mucus glands of the infected person. What does the Lord prescribe for the healthy person if he or she has been in the vicinity of a sick person with a cough or sneeze? It is the same prescription given by our doctors 3,000 years later. Today they tell us the same thing. Wash and bathe. Notice that even with the wash and the bath, the nurse or attendant must be unclean until evening. We know that as quarantine. It is for the protection of others. The Lord set this barrier to give the body time to show symptoms if the infection transferred during contact with the sick person. One day I remember we were in my office, and one of the other ministers brought his father into my office for us to help his father. The father was fine, but the other minister was sick. He was wiping his nose. He was kind of coughing. A little spit here, a little spit there. And at the end of the session, he came over to shake hands with me. And I reached out and shook his hand because it's the natural thing to do. A little bit later, it was time for me to eat lunch. And I took out my lunch and I looked there and there was a chocolate chip cookie. Now I'm one of those people, and you can probably tell by looking at me, that the main course for me is always the dessert and everything else is just the extras. And I wanted that cookie and I picked up that cookie and I ate it. I was halfway through it when I realized I had not washed my hands and I had touched that sick minister's hands. I quickly went and washed my hands. I came back and took sanitizer and I sanitized my hands and my desk and everything, and I ate the rest of my lunch. That was about noon. By 4:30, my sinuses were killing me. My nose was running. My eyes were watering and I was coughing. I was unclean. In just 4.5 hours, he had transferred it to me. Now from the spit of the sick, we come to the seat of the sick. People help sick people. And at times the need to transfer the sick for medical help occurs. And in that transfer process, sickness spreads. Even the seat of the sick can infect others. Verse 8b. Every saddle on which the person with the discharge rides becomes unclean. Whoever then touches any of the things which were under him shall be unclean until evening. And he who carries them shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. As before, the only preventable solution for a healthy person comes with a wash and a bath. Then as before, quarantine time gives the helper time if he's going to show any symptoms of infection. And from the seat of the sick, we come to the spread of the sick. The helper's problem is not touching the sick. The helper can control the amount of handling that he does with the sick. The problem occurs when the ill person touches the helper. The problem brings us to the spread of the sick by the sick. Verse 11. Likewise, whomever the one with the discharge touches without having rinsed his hands in water shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Once again, we come to the universal answer to control the spread of sickness. Rinse the hands, wash the clothes, take a bath, quarantine until evening. In all cases, an until evening would naturally mean until the next day, because at evening time, in those days when nightfall came, the ordinary, the trustworthy people returned to their homes and remained there until the break of light in the morning, when they went back to work. In other words, until evening means by the time the evening is over and you come into the dark, into the night, you're going to be at home, you're going to stay there. Then we come to the saucer of the sick. But sick people need to eat too. Clay and wooden vessels held the prepared foods and drinks. The ill person touched these vessels as they partook of food and drinks. Then the Lord gave the instruction for the saucer of the sick. Verse 12. However, an earthen vessel which the person with the discharge touches shall be broken, and every wooden vessel shall be rinsed in water. Now clay, earthenware vessels, they're porous, as we talked about before, and could not be adequately cleaned. And repeatedly in the past chapters, when items were cooked in clay pots, the destruction of the pot was mandatory. It could not be cleaned enough to cook anything else. But that is not the case with the wooden or the brass utensils that can be cleaned appropriately. At this point, the Lord addresses the wooden ones, and He says, the message here indicates that humans need to know that the items that a ill person, sick person touched, especially with food and drink, can transmit diseases. If it's a clay pot, break it. If it's a wooden pot, clean it. And before we move on to the atonement of the man once he is clean, we must address all mentioned to this point concerning the man, and by reason apply it to the woman also. The Lord will not make these same points concerning diseases that occur in these 9 natural orifices of a man and a woman. But the woman is just as prone to have these diseases as a man. Can these warnings be applied to the woman too? I think so. And here's the reason. Throughout the Bible, when a man and a woman unite in marriage, the two become one. And factually, in all common law that came to America through England, through the biblical standard concerning marriage, it stands as the statute that when two people join together, a man and a woman, they become one, and the one is considered the man. And in history of most nations, a married woman could not own anything of value in the marriage in her name until the death of her husband. Of course, there are exceptions in every nation, especially among royalty, but that is not the common thing among regular people. The same is true in the nation of Israel during the days of the Exodus. In 40 years from the time of giving this Leviticus order, it details, we will come up upon the detail of how to divide up the promised land to each family patriarch. 5 sisters who had no male counterparts, no fathers, no brothers, to own the land when it was going to be divided up and given to the different tribal families within each tribe, they complained to Moses. We find that in Numbers chapter 27, verse 1 through 7. So the decision has to be made by the Lord, and Moses gave those 5 sisters land in the name of their dead father's name. And with that, these sisters could live on their own land. I believe that the general instruction concerning the flow and the blockage of the natural male openings that arise at the first signs of disease can and should apply to the man's wife and, by extension, to all women. Why? The 9 natural openings on a male have the same counterparts on the female. Therefore, there would be no need to repeat the instruction concerning these openings and the diseases. More will come for this reasoning when we reach the woman's disorders in this chapter following this passage. So now we come to the atonement of the man with a discharge. The human body is amazing. And with time and care, healing often comes. And a diseased man can be declared clean. And with that, we already know about the holy ceremony upon the healing of any disease. We can almost predict what Moses is about to say because of what he said about that of the leprosy problem. Here we come to verse 13. Now when the man with the discharge becomes cleansed from his discharge, then he shall count off for himself 7 days for his cleansing. And he shall then wash his clothes and bathe his body in running water and will become clean. Then on the 8th day he shall take for himself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord to the doorway of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. And the priest shall offer them, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. So the priest shall make atonement on his behalf before the Lord because of his discharge. So once the discharge is stopped, a 7-day waiting period presents no surprise to us. That's what it was over with leprosy too. The washing and the cleansing presents no surprise. The 8th day celebration presents no surprise. The 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons presents no surprise. The sin and the burnt offering presents no surprise. The atonement by the priest presents no surprise. Nothing is a surprise in this atonement of the man with a discharge. It is all expected if, and only if, you have learned all that has come before in this book of the laws of Leviticus. You understand it. For the Jewish, it was mandatory. Well, that's the general of a man. A man with a discharge, and as I believe, from one of his 9 orifices. Whether the discharge is running and flowing, or the problem is the discharge is stopped up, the man is unclean. But from the general now, we move to the specific, for a man in specific, of the man. So after addressing the needs for cleanliness during sickness that can spread through the natural openings of a man's body, for which a religious ceremony always concluded the healing process, the Lord now turns to address the regular, intentional, and normal emission for the man in specific that does not require a religious ceremony. It is a function that only a man can have and not a woman. Verse 16. Now if a man has a seminal emission, he shall bathe all his body in water and be unclean until evening. As for any garments or any leather on which there is a seminal emission, it shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening. So, the Lord does not address an illness in this passage. He addresses a regular operation of a male's body's function. When this emission occurs from a man in everyday life, the remedy requires the washing of any item touched. And as usual in all cases, the man needs to seclude himself that day after the cleansing until evening, which means really till morning. And this cleansing does not require a holy ceremony down at the tabernacle. Why? Because it's totally normal. It is how God created a man's body to function. But then the Lord turns to the specifics of a man when he's with a woman. And the Lord made the man's body to connect with the woman's body to bring about babies into this world. And the Lord made man for that purpose. And the Lord made man for that purpose so a man can interact with his wife in the marriage routine. And the Lord gave instruction for both following that type of union. Verse 18. If a man lies with a woman so that there is a seminal emission, they shall both bathe in water and be unclean until evening. So, when a man and woman in their marriage do a man and woman type thing in their marriage, they're going to go hit the showers together. The seminal emission from a man to a woman in the marriage relationship often results in a childbirth. There's nothing wrong with that. Such is the Lord's plan for a man and a woman. However, after they have had union together, they both need to bathe. And they need to separate themselves from the world around them. But there is no need for a religious ceremony. Now the Lord turns to the woman in general. Take the man out of the equation. We come to the person of the woman who has a discharge. So the Lord then addresses discharges of the woman in general. We count the natural openings in a man's body, and the number was 9. But when we count the natural openings of a woman, there are 10. The 9 found on the male have the same counterparts in the female, but the 10th in the woman does not have a counterpart in the male. It is that particular part of the woman's body that the Lord addresses. All the illnesses that we address with the male's 9 parts can be associated with the counterparts found in the woman. Therefore, the Lord did not need to cover these possible illnesses in the female. But here the Lord addresses the person of the woman that has a discharge, and let me call it this way, in her unique organ that the man does not have. Verse 19. When a woman has a discharge, if her discharge in her body is blood, she shall continue in her menstrual impurity for 7 days. And whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything also on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean, and everything on which she sits shall be unclean. First, the Lord addresses the regular monthly time of the woman. The Lord made her organ function with a monthly cleansing naturally induced by her body. I wonder if you have ever thought about the cleansing process of anything. In that cleansing process, something must become dirty for something to become clean. The washcloth becomes dirty when we use it to clean our bodies. We find the same true with the woman's body. The 7-day flow of blood causes other things to become unclean in the body's process of becoming clean. And whatever the woman touches during her monthly time becomes unclean to everyone around her. So, a woman can care for the normal discharge from her body without the help or without help during her regular time of the month. She can take care of that. For a single woman, her time of uncleanness should not affect anyone. But for a married woman, when there's a marital relationship, and that marital relationship and that occurs, and her monthly uncleanness comes, it will affect her husband. Verse 21. Anyone who touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches anything on which she sits shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Whether it be on the bed or on the thing on which she is sitting, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until evening. If a man actually lies with her so that her menstrual impurity is on him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. The man touching anything during the time of his wife's regular uncleanness needs only to wash and bathe each day. But if that man and woman have a marital union during the 7 days of that natural body cleaning, the man becomes unclean for 7 days. Every pallet he sleeps on during the 7 days also becomes unclean. However, the Lord does not mention a need for an atonement ceremony with the priest because of this interaction between a husband and a wife in the course of their marriage. Their relationship and their normal functions of the woman's body with the man is totally permissible without needing a ceremony. But what happens if the woman has an illness with a discharge? The woman's standard monthly body cleaning does not cover all the issues that can discharge from her unique organ. Verse 25. Now if a woman has a discharge of her blood many days, not at the period of her menstrual impurity, or if she has a discharge beyond that period, all the days of her impure discharge she shall continue as though in her menstrual impurity. She is unclean. Any bed on which she lies all the days of her discharge shall be to her like her bed of menstruation. And everything on which she sits shall be unclean, like her uncleanness at the time. When a sickness in a woman's unique organ occurs, The first order of business requires the same treatment that the discharge as in the manner of her monthly bodily cleaning. The disease makes her unclean for the entire time of the infection, in the same way that her monthly body cleaning makes her unclean. No doubt, with an illness such as this, a doctor, a nurse, or at least, would need to attend to her needs. And so we come to the nurse of the woman with a discharge. Just as the nurse or the doctor who attended the male with the infectious discharge became unclean, so too the same applies to a female. Verse 27. Likewise, whoever touches them shall be unclean and shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. The Lord's prescription repeats that is found with the instruction of the man. In short, the law requires the washing of the clothing, the bathing of the body, and the segregation from clean persons. But just as the man could have a time for atonement in her uncleanness that's not part of her regular monthly time, the atonement of the woman also comes, and we see that in verse 28. When she becomes clean from her discharge, she shall count off for herself 7 days, and afterwards she shall be clean. Then on the 8th day she shall take for herself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and bring them into the priest to the doorway of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. So the priest shall make atonement on her behalf before the Lord because of her impure discharge. The atonement offering for the woman and the infectious discharge of her unique organ is the same as that for the man. No difference at all. The two require 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to become the sin offering, and one to become the burnt offering on the 8th day following that man or that woman's healing. But then, for that ceremony in general, we come to that. Uncleanness from a discharge of a person's body, man or woman, all associated with that person brings deathly consequences at the tabernacle with the presentation of the offering. You have to be clean when you come to the tabernacle to present that offering. Verse 31. Thus you shall keep the sons of Israel separated from their uncleanness, so that they will not die in their uncleanness by their defiling my tabernacle that is among them. Someone may hide his illness from the public, but no one can conceal conditions from the Lord. Anyone who tries to approach the Lord with a regular offering without declaring to the priest a hidden disease will die. Outside the normal bodily functions of a man and a woman, illness would defile the Lord's tabernacle, and the penalty would result in the immediate death before the Lord. A sickness of an abnormal discharge from the body required the oversight of the priest. The normal function of marital life that made a man unclean did not require the priest. Both had their times of uncleanness. Both had their times of cleanness. The Lord forbids any person from approaching Him in His tabernacle during their times of uncleanness. And for the man and the woman in general, as we are ending this portion of the law, the Lord concludes with His statement of the general statute for the man and the woman in general. Verse 32. This is the law for the one with a discharge, and for the man who has a seminal emission so that he is unclean by it, and for the woman who is ill because of her menstrual impurity, and for the one who has a discharge, whether a man or a female, or a man who lies with an unclean woman. Notice that the stated law agrees with my interpretation of this chapter. First, the Lord addresses the discharges of a man. He does not specify where the disease discharges from the man come. He is not specific, and neither should we be. The created male has 9 places that can discharge fluids associated with an illness. It also has 9 places of which fluids can be stopped up associated with an illness. Illness can be blocked from those normal, healthy places. The discharge that should happen. Then the Lord addresses the regular emission from a male's body. It does not call it a discharge, it calls it an emission. A discharge assumes an illness. With the woman, the Lord addresses the regular body's cleansing of her unique organ, and then addresses the discharges that are not normal, but infectious. Finally, the Lord addresses the state of uncleanness that the man and the woman find themselves in when they are interacting with one another in marriage. And all this agrees perfectly with the commentary on this chapter. It is by far the most, I promise you, extensive explanation found among the commentaries for this chapter. And with the cleansing from the infectious diseases of the male and female, both require an atonement offering before the presence of the Lord. And that thought offers a natural transition to atonement offerings. And in the next topic, the Lord's instruction deals with the once a year day of atonement for the sins of the people. It's a natural transition. We've been talking about the atonement of a male or female unclean, and now we're going to talk about the atonement that is needed for the nation. That chapter is long, therefore we will end this lesson a little early and begin anew with the Day of Atonement in our next session together. May the Lord grant you wisdom and understanding in what we have just studied in the teaching of this lesson. Lord, bless it all, and enhance us and give us great understanding. In your name, amen.